Wade Lancaster stood on the wooden platform of Cripple Creek's train station in Colorado, squinting against the afternoon sun of June, 1882, clutching a faded daguerreotype of a delicate blonde woman with porcelain skin, and wondering if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. The locomotive hissed and groaned to a stop, belching steam across the platform. Wade's heart hammered against his ribs as passengers began to disembark. He searched every face, looking for the refined Eastern lady from the photograph, the mail-order bride who had promised to bring civilization and gentility to his rough mountain existence. He had spent 3 months corresponding with Miss Margaret Sullivan from Boston, a woman who wrote of her love for poetry, her refined upbringing, and her delicate constitution. She seemed perfect on paper, everything a lonely rancher could want after years of solitary living in the harsh Colorado mountains. The crowd thinned. Wade's palms grew sweaty. Then he saw her. She was nothing like the photograph he had been sent. Where he expected blonde, he saw rich auburn hair escaping from a practical traveling bonnet. Where he anticipated porcelain delicacy, he found sun-kissed skin dusted with freckles across a strong nose. She wore a sensible brown traveling dress rather than the fancy Eastern fashions he had imagined, and she hauled her own trunk down the train steps with muscular arms that had clearly seen physical labor. She was tall, nearly matching his own 6-foot frame, with broad shoulders and hands that looked capable of real work. Wade's stomach dropped. This could not be his bride. There had been some terrible mistake. The woman scanned the platform, her green eyes sharp and assessing. When those eyes landed on him, recognition flashed across her face. She hefted her trunk and walked directly toward him with purposeful strides that ate up the distance between them. "You must be Wade Lancaster," she said, her voice lower and more musical than he had expected. "I am Sarah Brennan from Boston. Well, originally from Ireland, then Boston for the past 5 years." She set down her trunk with a decisive thump and extended her hand for a shake, rather than a delicate greeting. "I suppose you are wondering why I do not look like the photograph you received." Wade took her hand automatically. Her grip was firm and warm. Yes, actually, I am confused." Sarah withdrew her hand and looked him directly in the eye, her chin lifted with what he would later recognize as characteristic defiance. "That photograph was of Margaret Sullivan, the woman you were corresponding with. She was my employer. I worked as her housemaid. 3 weeks ago, Margaret ran off with a steamship captain bound for Europe. She left behind debts, chaos, and a stack of letters from you. When I read them, I saw an opportunity for a different life than endless servitude in Boston." She paused, watching his face carefully. "I took her place. I wrote you as Margaret, using her stationery. I know it was deceitful, and if you want to put me back on that train, I will understand. But I was honest about everything except my name and appearance. Everything else I wrote to you was true." Wade felt like he had been kicked by a horse. You lied. For 3 weeks you pretended to be someone else." "I did," Sarah said without flinching, "and I am not proud of the deception. But I am strong. I am a hard worker. I can cook and clean and mend and handle livestock. I grew up on a farm in County Cork before the hunger drove us to America. I know animals and the land. I may not be the delicate flower you wanted, but I would be a true partner. That is worth more than a pretty face, I think. This is." Wade ran his hand through his dark hair, his mind racing. "This is not what I agreed to." "No," Sarah agreed quietly. "It is not. But life rarely gives us what we expect, does it? It gives us what we need if we are brave enough to see it." Before Wade could respond, a commotion erupted near the station house. 3 men on horseback rode hard into the square, whooping and firing pistols into the air. Townsfolk scattered. Wade instinctively moved towards Sarah, positioning himself between her and the riders. "Inside," he said sharply, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the station building. But Sarah did not move toward safety. Instead, she yanked her arm free and grabbed her trunk, hauling it with impressive speed toward the shelter of a water trough. Wade had no choice but to follow. They crouched behind the trough as the riders circled the square, clearly drunk and looking for trouble. "Are they outlaws?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the danger. "Just cowboys blowing off steam, probably, but with that much whiskey in them, they are dangerous enough." Wade watched the men carefully, his hand resting on the revolver at his hip. The riders eventually moved on toward the saloon district, their raucous laughter fading into the afternoon. Wade helped Sarah to her feet, acutely aware of how calmly she had handled the situation. No screaming, no swooning, just practical action. "Welcome to Cripple Creek," he said dryly. Sarah brushed dust from her skirt. "I have seen worse in the immigrant quarters of Boston. At least here the air is clean and you can see trouble coming from a distance." She met his eyes again. "I understand if you want to send me back. I have enough money for a ticket. Barely. But I would ask you to consider giving me a chance. A trial period, if you will. 1 month. If at the end of that time you want me gone, I will leave without complaint." Wade studied her face. She was not beautiful in the conventional sense, but there was something arresting about her features. Strength and intelligence radiated from those green eyes. Her jaw was firm, her mouth generous, her expression open and honest despite her earlier deception. He should send her back. This was not what he had arranged. He had wanted a refined woman to bring culture and softness to his life. Someone to read poetry by the fire and play the piano he had optimistically purchased 6 months ago in anticipation of a cultured bride. But as he looked at Sarah Brennan, standing tall and unflinching in the Colorado dust, he found himself saying, 1 month. We will see how things go. But there will be no more lies between us, honesty or nothing. Relief flashed across Sarah's face before she controlled it. "Honesty, you have my word. My ranch is about an hour's ride from here. I have a wagon waiting. We should get going before dark." Sarah nodded and reached for her trunk, but Wade waved her off and lifted it himself. It was surprisingly heavy. "What do you have in here?" "Rocks, books mostly, and my grandmother's iron skillet, a few other necessities." She followed him to where his wagon and team waited. "I am sorry about the wait. I could not bear to leave my books behind." Wade loaded the trunk into the wagon bed, then helped Sarah up onto the bench seat before climbing up beside her. As he took the reins and guided the horses out of town, he tried to reconcile himself to this unexpected turn of events. They rode in silence for a while, the wagon creaking along the rutted mountain road. The afternoon sun painted the rocky peaks in shades of gold and amber. Wade's ranch lay in a valley between 2 ridges, where a creek provided year-round water and the grazing was good enough to support his small herd of cattle and horses. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "Your letters spoke of loneliness, of wanting a companion, someone to share the beauty of this place with. That much was real, was it not?" "Yes," Wade admitted. "I have been alone out here for 5 years. I built the ranch from nothing after I mustered out of the army. It is a good life, but a solitary one. The winters especially can drive a man to talking to his horses, just to hear a human voice. Then perhaps the details of what I look like, or where I truly come from, matter less than the fact that I am here, and I am willing." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "I will not pretend to be something I am not. I cannot play the piano or recite French poetry. But I can work beside you, Wade Lancaster. I can be your partner in building this life. Is that not what you truly need, Wade glanced at her, surprised by her directness. "You are not at all what I expected." "No," Sarah agreed with a small smile. "But sometimes the things we do not expect turn out to be exactly right." The ranch came into view as they crested a rise. Wade watched Sarah's face carefully, wondering what she would think of his home. It was not much, just a sturdy log cabin with a barn, a corral, and a few outbuildings. But he had built it all with his own hands, and he was proud of it. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes taking in every detail. "It is beautiful," she breathed. "Look at those mountains behind it. And is that your creek there? The water looks so clear. Boulder Creek. It runs cold and fast, even in summer. Good fishing, too." Wade felt an unexpected warmth at her obvious appreciation. "The cabin is just 2 rooms right now. I plan to add on eventually. When? Well, when I'm married." 2 rooms is more than many have. In Boston, I shared a single room with 3 other housemaids. Sarah continued to study the landscape. "How many head of cattle do you run?" "About 200 right now. 20 horses. I sell beef to the mining camps and break horses on the side." "It is enough to live on comfortably, with some to spare." Wade pulled the wagon up to the cabin and set the brake. He jumped down and came around to help Sarah, but she had already climbed down herself and was stretching her back. "The train is not kind to tall people," she said with a grimace. "I have been folded like a letter for 2 days." Wade retrieved her trunk and carried it inside, Sarah following close behind. The cabin's main room served as kitchen, dining, and living space, with a large stone fireplace dominating one wall. The furniture was simple but well made, most of it Wade's own handiwork. Through an open door, the bedroom was visible, containing a large bed covered with a colorful quilt. "That quilt was my mother's," Wade said, suddenly self-conscious about the sleeping arrangements. "She made it before she passed. I have been sleeping in the barn since yesterday, preparing for your arrival. The bedroom is yours." Sarah turned to him sharply. "Absolutely not. You will not sleep in your own barn because of me." "I can sleep out there, or we can hang a curtain and divide the main room, but I will not displace you from your own bed." "It would not be proper for us to sleep under the same roof when we are not truly married yet," Wade protested. "We are engaged to be married, are we not?" "Or has my deception changed that entirely?" Sarah challenged. Wade ran his hand through his hair again, a gesture Sarah was learning meant he was flustered. "I do not know what we are. I need time to think." "Fair enough," Sarah said. "Then I will sleep in the barn tonight. Tomorrow we can sort out more permanent arrangements." "I cannot let you. You can. And you will," Sarah interrupted firmly. "I have slept in far worse places than a clean barn. Now is there food in this house? I am starving, and you look like you have not eaten properly in days. Let me cook us dinner at least. Whatever else may be uncertain between us, we both need to eat." Wade found himself nodding, steamrolled by her practical determination. He showed her where he kept his food stores, then went out to tend to the horses and give himself time to think. This entire day had turned his expectations upside down. He felt off balance, uncertain. He had prepared himself for months to receive a refined Eastern lady, and instead he had gotten Sarah Brennan, who was nothing like what he had imagined, and yet somehow more real than any fantasy. When he returned to the cabin an hour later, the aroma of cooking food hit him like a physical thing. His stomach growled traitorously. Sarah had found his supplies and was working at the stove with efficient movements. The table was set for 2. "I hope you like stew," she said without turning around. "I found potatoes, onions, carrots, and some salt pork. There is also fresh bread, though I did not make it myself this time. It smells incredible." Wade washed his hands in the basin by the door. "I am not much of a cook. I have been living on beans and jerky mostly." Well, that changes now. Sit down. It is ready. They sat across from each other at the rough wooden table. Wade served them both and they began to eat. After the first bite, Wade looked up in surprise. "This is really good." "Did you think I lied about being able to cook?" Sarah asked with a hint of amusement. "I did not know what to think." Wade took another bite. "Tell me about yourself, the real you, not Margaret Sullivan." Sarah set down her spoon and met his eyes. "I was born in Ireland in 1859, which makes me 23 years old now. I came to America with my family when I was 10, after the famine destroyed our farm. We settled in Boston. My father found work on the docks. My mother took in laundry. I went into service at 12 to help support the family." She paused, her expression distant. "My parents died 4 years ago in a tenement fire. My younger brother joined the Merchant Marine and I lost track of him. I have been alone since then, working for different families, saving every penny I could." "I am sorry about your parents," Wade said quietly. "Thank you. It was a long time ago." Sarah took a sip of water. "What about you? Your letters mention the Army." "I enlisted in 1875 at 18. Served in various frontier posts. I saw some action against raiding parties, but mostly it was boredom and bad food. I saved my pay and bought land here when I mustered out in 1877. I have been building this ranch ever since." Wade paused. "My parents died when I was 16. Cholera took them both within a week. I have a sister back in Kansas, married with children. We write occasionally, but I have not seen her in years. So we are both orphans then, both building new lives far from where we started." Sarah's voice was thoughtful. "Perhaps we have more in common than you think." They finished the meal in companionable silence. Afterward, Sarah insisted on cleaning up while Wade brought in more firewood. As darkness fell, the awkwardness of their situation returned. "I should go out to the barn," Sarah said, standing. "Take these blankets and this lantern. There are nails on the walls where you can hang it." Wade gathered supplies for her. "I cleaned out a stall and put fresh hay down. It should be comfortable enough." Sarah accepted the blankets with a nod. "Thank you. I will see you in the morning then." Wade walked her to the barn, carrying the lantern and blankets. The night air was cool and filled with the sound of crickets. Stars blazed overhead in impossible profusion, unmarred by city lights. "Oh," Sarah breathed, stopping to look up. "I have never seen so many stars." "They are something, are they not?" Wade followed her gaze. "In the winter, when the air is really clear, it looks like you could reach up and touch them." They stood together for a moment, looking at the sky. Wade was acutely aware of Sarah's presence beside him, tall and solid and real. She smelled like cooking spices and train travel and something floral he could not identify. "Wade," Sarah said softly, still looking at the stars. "I know I am not what you wanted, but I promise you I will work hard to make this worth your while. I will earn my place here." "It is not about working hard," Wade said. "I believe you are a hard worker, I can see that. It is just, I thought I knew what I wanted, what I needed, and now I do not know anything." "Then take your time to figure it out. I am patient." Sarah finally looked at him. In the starlight, her face was all plains and shadows. "But I hope you will give us a real chance. I think we could be good together." Wade showed her to the prepared stall, made sure she had everything she needed, then walked back to the cabin alone. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind churning. He kept comparing the delicate blonde from the photograph with the strong, capable woman now sleeping in his barn. They were nothing alike. Margaret Sullivan would probably have fainted at the sight of his rough cabin. Sarah had rolled up her sleeves and made dinner. Morning came too early. Wade woke to find Sarah already up, the smell of coffee and bacon wafting from the cabin. He dressed quickly and stepped outside to find her at the stove again, her hair braided back, her sleeves rolled up. "You did not have to do this," he said. "I wanted to. Besides, I was awake anyway. The rooster you have is very enthusiastic about his job." She handed him a cup of coffee. "I thought we could talk about what needs doing today. I assume a ranch does not run itself." Wade accepted the coffee gratefully. "I need to check on the cattle, repair some fence line that went down in the last storm, and work with a young horse I am breaking. It will take most of the day." "What can I do to help?" Sarah asked directly. "You do not have to, Wade. I did not come all this way to sit idle. Put me to work. I meant what I said about being a partner." Wade studied her determined face. "Can you really handle livestock? I grew up on a farm, remember? I can milk a cow, feed chickens, slop pigs, whatever you need." "I may be rusty, but it will come back." "All right. There is a vegetable garden that has been neglected. It needs weeding and watering. The chickens need feeding and eggs collecting. And if you are truly willing, the milk cow needs milking. I have been doing it myself, but she has never liked me much. Consider it done." Sarah served them both breakfast, and they ate quickly. The day passed in productive activity. Wade found himself checking on Sarah periodically, curious to see if she could really do what she claimed. Each time she was working steadily, her movements efficient and practiced. She attacked the weedy garden with determination, sang to the chickens as she scattered feed, and emerged from the barn with a full pail of milk and a triumphant expression. "Bessie and I have come to an understanding," she announced, setting the milk pail down. "She is a good cow, just opinionated." Wade could not help but smile. "She has kicked over more than one pail with me. You were probably too tense. Cows can sense these things." Sarah wiped her forehead with her sleeve, leaving a streak of dirt. "What is next?" "Next, you should rest. You have done more than enough for one day. It is barely afternoon. Show me this horse you are working with." Against his better judgment, Wade led her to the round pen where a young bay gelding was circling nervously. "I have been working with him for 2 weeks. He is getting better, but he is still spooky." Sarah leaned on the fence, watching the horse with intelligent eyes. "He has kind eyes." "He is scared, not mean. Who had him before you?" "I bought him from a prospector who was heading back east. The man was not cruel exactly, but not patient either." Wade climbed into the pen with the horse, moving slowly and deliberately. The gelding's ears swiveled toward him, but he did not bolt. "I am teaching him that people mean safety, not fear." Wade worked with the horse for an hour, Sarah watching silently from the fence. He was aware of her presence, aware of her careful attention. When he finally led the gelding to accept a saddle blanket on his back without panicking, he heard her quiet congratulations. "That was beautiful to watch," she said as he emerged from the pen. "You have such patience with him." Horses respond to patience and consistency. If you are harsh, they remember. If you are kind, they remember that too. Wade removed his hat and wiped his brow. "I learned that in the army. The best horsemen were always the gentlest." They walked back to the cabin together as the sun began its descent toward the mountains. Wade found himself relaxing around Sarah in a way he had not expected. She did not chatter needlessly or demand constant attention. She was comfortable with silence, with work, with the rhythms of ranch life. Over the next week, they fell into a routine. Wade handled the heavier ranch work while Sarah took over the household tasks and helped with the animals. She was as good as her word, working from dawn until dusk without complaint. The cabin had never been cleaner, the meals had never been better, and the garden was already showing signs of revival under her care. But the elephant in the room remained unaddressed. They were still strangers in many ways, engaged to be married but not committed. Wade slept in the cabin, Sarah in the barn, and they maintained a careful distance from anything too personal. On the 8th day, Wade was working on fence repairs when he heard Sarah calling for him, her voice urgent. He dropped his tools and ran toward the cabin, his heart pounding. He found her in the yard, pointing toward the road. Riders coming, 4 of them moving fast. Wade shaded his eyes and spotted the dust cloud. "Go inside, stay away from the windows." "What is wrong? Just do it, please." For once, Sarah did not argue. She hurried into the cabin while Wade positioned himself in the yard, his hand resting on his gun. The riders approached rapidly, and as they got closer, Wade recognized them. His shoulders relaxed slightly. The lead rider was Marcus Webb, his nearest neighbor, whose ranch lay 5 miles to the east. The other 3 were Marcus's sons, all grown men. "Wade," Marcus called out, pulling his horse to a stop. "We have got trouble. Rustlers hit my herd last night, took about 30 head. We tracked them toward the high country but lost them in the rocks. I am gathering men to go after them." "How many rustlers?" Wade asked. "Tracks suggest 5 or 6. They know the country, moved fast and smart." Marcus's weathered face was grim. "I could use your help, Wade. You know those mountains better than most, and you can track." Wade hesitated, glancing toward the cabin. He could see Sarah's silhouette in the window. "I heard you got yourself a mail-order bride," Marcus said, following his gaze. "Congratulations, but this cannot wait. Those rustlers are getting bolder. My herd today, yours tomorrow. We need to stop them now." "How long will you be gone?" Sarah's voice came from the doorway. She had emerged despite his instructions. "Could be 3 days, maybe 4, Marcus said, tipping his hat to her. "Madam." "Marcus Webb at your service." "Sarah Brennan," she replied. "Wade, if you need to go, then go. I can handle things here." "It is not safe for you to be alone," Wade protested. "I am not helpless. I can shoot if needed. And surely the rustlers will be busy in the high country, not bothering with a small ranch like this." Sarah's voice was calm and practical. "Your neighbors need you. Go." Wade looked between Sarah and Marcus, torn. Finally, he nodded. "Give me 10 minutes to pack and saddle up." He moved quickly, gathering supplies for several days in the mountains. Sarah helped him, filling his canteen, packing food, checking his ammunition. At the last moment, as he was mounting his horse, she caught his stirrup. "Be careful," she said quietly. "Come back in one piece." There was something in her eyes that made Wade's chest tighten. "I will. You be careful too. Keep the doors locked at night. If anything seems wrong, fire 3 shots in the air. Sound carries out here and one of the other ranchers will come." Then he was riding off with Marcus and his sons, looking back once to see Sarah standing in the yard, watching them go. The next 3 days were hard riding through rough country. They picked up the rustlers' trail in the high meadows and followed it through narrow canyons and across rushing streams. On the 3rd day, they caught up with the thieves camped in a box canyon, the stolen cattle penned in a makeshift corral. The fight was brief and brutal. Shots were fired, men shouted, cattle stampeded. When the smoke cleared, 2 rustlers were dead, 3 were captured and bound, and 1 had escaped into the rocks. Marcus had his cattle back, minus the 2 killed in the stampede. Wade had taken a bullet graze across his ribs, painful but not serious. "You need to get that looked at," Marcus said, examining the wound that evening as they camped with the recovered cattle. "It is nothing. I have had worse." Wade pressed a bandana against the bleeding. "Still, you should have someone check it when you get home. That bride of yours seems capable. She has a good head on her shoulders." Marcus handed Wade a flask of whiskey. "Take a drink. It will help with the pain." Wade took a swig, welcoming the burn. "She is not what I expected." "Is that a bad thing?" Marcus asked shrewdly. "I do not know yet." Wade stared into the fire. "She is strong, capable, not afraid of work, but she is not. I thought I wanted someone refined, cultured, someone to bring a different kind of life to the ranch. You know what I think? Marcus leaned back against his saddle. I think you wanted a dream, not a real woman. Dreams are nice, Wade, but they do not cook your dinner or watch your back or warm your bed at night. That's Sarah, she is real. And from what I saw in the few minutes I met her, she is tough as nails and smart as a whip. You could do a hell of a lot worse. Wade thought about that as he tried to sleep on the hard ground, his ribs aching. He thought about Sarah's steady presence over the past week, her competence, her strength. He thought about how the cabin had felt like a home for the first time since he had built it. He thought about her eyes when she told him to be careful. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe he had been chasing a dream instead of looking at what was real and right in front of him. They drove the cattle back to Marcus's ranch the next day. Then Wade headed home, exhausted and sore. It was late afternoon when his ranch came into view, and his heart lifted unexpectedly at the sight. Smoke curled from the cabin chimney. Chickens scratched in the yard. Everything looked peaceful and welcoming. Sarah must have heard his horse because she emerged from the cabin as he rode up. Her face lit up with obvious relief when she saw him. "You are back," she said, then her expression changed to concern as she took in his appearance. "You are hurt." "It is just a graze, nothing serious." Wade dismounted, wincing at the movement. "Inside. Now, let me see." Sarah's voice had taken on a commanding tone that reminded Wade of army surgeons. She ushered him into the cabin and pushed him into a chair. "Take off your shirt." Wade obeyed, too tired to argue. Sarah brought a basin of water and clean cloths. Her hands were gentle but efficient as she cleaned the wound, her face close to his as she examined the injury. "It is not deep, but it could have been. You were lucky." She applied a salve that stung, then began wrapping his ribs with strips of clean cotton. "You should have been more careful." "I was as careful as I could be while getting shot at," Wade said dryly. "Well, next time be more careful about not getting shot at." Sarah tied off the bandage firmly. "There, keep it clean and dry, no heavy lifting for a few days. I have a ranch to run. And I have 2 hands and a functioning brain. I can handle the heavy work for a few days." Sarah stepped back, surveying her handiwork. "Did you catch them?" "Most of them. Recovered Marcus's cattle. 2 of the rustlers are dead, 3 are on their way to the jail in town." "Good." Sarah began putting away the medical supplies. "I made stew. You should eat, then rest." Wade watched her move around the cabin with easy familiarity. "How were things here while I was gone?" "Quiet. Peaceful, actually. I got a lot done. The garden is fully weeded now, and I mended all your clothes that needed it. Also organized your tack room, which was a disaster." She ladled stew into a bowl and brought it to him. "I was not bored, if that is what you are worried about. I was worried about you being in danger." Sarah met his eyes. "I appreciate that, but I can take care of myself, Wade. I have been doing it for a long time." They ate together, Sarah telling him about the small events of her days alone, Wade finding himself relaxing into her presence. When he finished eating, exhaustion crashed over him like a wave. "You need to sleep," Sarah said, reading his expression. "Go on, I will clean up." Wade did not have the energy to argue. He stumbled to the bedroom and collapsed on the bed fully clothed except for his boots, which Sarah must have removed because when he woke hours later in darkness, they were sitting neatly by the door. He sat up carefully, his ribs protesting. Moonlight streamed through the window. He could hear gentle breathing and realized Sarah was sleeping in a chair by the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket. "Sarah," he called softly. She woke immediately, alert. "What is wrong? Are you in pain? What are you doing sleeping in a chair? You needed the bed. I am fine here." Wade stood up carefully and crossed to her. "This is ridiculous. You have been sleeping in a barn for over a week. I am not going to let you sleep in a chair in your own house now." "This is not my house," Sarah said quietly. "Not really, not yet, maybe not ever if you decide to send me away." Wade looked down at her, this strong, stubborn woman who had turned his life upside down. In the moonlight, her hair looked like burnished copper, her eyes like deep forest pools. He made a decision. "I am not sending you away," he said. "I do not know exactly what we are to each other yet, but I know I do not want you to leave. So let us stop this foolishness. The bed is big enough for two. We are adults, and we are engaged to be married, even if the circumstances are unusual. We can share the space like civilized people." Sarah searched his face. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. I do not want you sleeping in chairs or barns anymore. Come on." He held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah took it. Her hand was warm and calloused, fitting perfectly in his. They walked to the bedroom together. Wade lay down on one side of the bed, Sarah on the other, a careful distance between them. They lay in the darkness, both acutely aware of the other's presence. "Wade," Sarah's voice was soft in the darkness. "Yes, thank you, for giving me a chance. For not sending me away immediately when you saw I was not what you ordered." "You are not what I ordered," Wade agreed. "But maybe that is not a bad thing. Maybe I ordered the wrong thing." He heard her breath catch slightly. Then, after a long moment, "Good night, Wade." "Good night, Sarah." Wade woke to golden morning light and the smell of coffee. Sarah's side of the bed was already empty, the blankets neatly arranged. He dressed carefully, his ribs still sore but better than yesterday. In the main room he found Sarah at the stove again, her hair braided back, humming softly to herself. She turned when she heard him. "How do you feel?" "Better. Sore, but better." Wade poured himself coffee. "Thank you for taking care of me yesterday." "That is what partners do, is it not?" Sarah served him breakfast. "I have been thinking. You said I had a month to prove myself. That month is almost half over. Do you want me to leave when it is done, or are we going to make this real?" Wade had been thinking about the same question. "I want to know more about you first, the real you. We have been dancing around each other, being polite. But if we are going to truly be married, we need to be honest about everything. All right." Sarah sat down across from him. "What do you want to know? Everything. What you love, what you hate, what you dream about, what you are afraid of." "All of it." Sarah took a deep breath. "I love reading, especially adventure stories. I hate cruelty in any form. I dream about having a real home, a place that belongs to me, children someday if God wills it. I am afraid of being alone forever, of never mattering to anyone." She paused. "I am afraid you will decide I am not good enough and send me away." "You are good enough," Wade said firmly. "More than good enough. You work harder than anyone I have ever met. You are smart and capable, and I am glad you are here, Sarah, even if it is not how I planned it." "What about you?" Sarah asked. "What are you afraid of?" Wade had not expected the question turned back on him. He thought for a moment. "I am afraid of failing, of losing the ranch, of not being able to protect what is mine. I am afraid of trusting the wrong person and getting hurt. I am afraid." He paused, then decided to be fully honest. "I am afraid that I am not good enough for a real relationship, that I have been alone too long and do not know how to share my life anymore." "We are both afraid then," Sarah said softly. "But maybe we can be afraid together, and that will make us braver." Over the following days, they talked more. Real conversations about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Wade told Sarah about his time in the army, about the things he had seen that still haunted his dreams sometimes. Sarah told him about the tenement fire that killed her parents, about the guilt she still carried for not being there. They worked together more as well. Wade taught Sarah to ride one of his gentler horses, a patient mare named Daisy. Sarah was a natural rider, sitting tall in the saddle and quickly gaining confidence. Together they rode out to check on the cattle, Sarah's eyes wide with wonder at the mountain vistas. "It is so big," she breathed, looking out over the valley. "So much space. Sometimes in Boston I felt like the buildings were crushing me. Here I can breathe." "I know what you mean," Wade said. "That is why I came west. I needed room to breathe." One afternoon, as they were working together to move some cattle to a new pasture, a thunderstorm rolled in fast. Lightning cracked across the sky, thunder booming off the mountains. The cattle spooked, running in all directions. "Get behind me," Wade shouted over the thunder, but Sarah did not get behind him. Instead, she wheeled her horse and rode to cut off a group of cattle trying to break away, whooping and waving her hat to turn them. She worked in tandem with Wade, showing no fear despite the lightning and chaos, until they had the herd settled in a sheltered grove. They sat on their horses in the rain, both soaked to the skin, looking at each other. Then Wade started laughing and Sarah joined him, and they sat there in the downpour laughing like children until the rain eased. "You are full of surprises," Wade said, wiping water from his face. "I told you I knew livestock," Sarah replied with a grin. "Did you not believe me? I believe you now." They rode back to the ranch in comfortable silence, the world fresh and clean washed around them. At the cabin, they both stripped off their wet outer garments, suddenly shy with each other in the close quarters. Sarah hung their clothes to dry while Wade built up the fire. "We should both change into dry things before we catch cold," Sarah said practically. They changed in different areas of the cabin, carefully not looking at each other. But when Wade emerged in dry clothes, he found Sarah struggling with her wet hair, trying to braid it back with fingers that were starting to shake from the cold. "Here, let me," he said, surprising himself. He had watched his sister braid her hair countless times as a child. The skill came back easily. He gathered Sarah's thick auburn hair in his hands, dividing it into sections, working the braid down her back. Her hair was soft and smelled like rain and the herbal soap she used. Sarah sat very still, her back straight. "Thank you," she said quietly when he finished and tied it off with a strip of ribbon she handed him. "You are welcome." Wade's hands rested on her shoulders for a moment, feeling the strength in them. Then he stepped back, suddenly aware of how intimate the moment had been. That night, as they lay in bed in the darkness, Wade found himself very conscious of Sarah's presence beside him. She was not far away anymore, not a stranger. She was Sarah, who made him laugh and challenged him and fit into his life like she had always belonged there. "Sarah," he said into the darkness. "Yes, I want this to be real. I want to marry you. For real, not just because of an arrangement or because it is convenient. Because I want you here in my life by my side." He felt her turn toward him in the darkness. "Are you certain? You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you are brave and strong and honest. I know you make my house feel like a home. I know I would rather have one real day with you than a lifetime with the dream woman I imagined." Wade turned toward her as well, though he could barely see her face in the darkness. "We can take our time getting to know each other better, but I want to marry you, Sarah Brennan, if you will have me." "Yes," Sarah whispered. "Yes, Wade Lancaster, I will marry you." Wade reached out and found her hand in the darkness, threading his fingers through hers. They fell asleep that way, hands clasped between them, both smiling in the dark. The next morning, Wade rode into Cripple Creek to speak with the circuit preacher who served the area. Reverend Thomas was an elderly man with kind eyes who had been riding the Colorado frontier for 30 years. "I need you to marry us," Wade told him. "Me and my bride, Sarah, as soon as possible." "I can do it this Sunday after the regular service," Reverend Thomas said. "Will that suit?" "That suits fine. We will be there." Wade rode back to the ranch with a lightness in his chest he had not felt in years. He found Sarah in the garden, her face lit with pleasure when she saw him. "Sunday," he announced. "We marry on Sunday." Sarah stood up, brushing dirt from her hands, her smile radiant. "Sunday, that gives us 3 days to prepare." They spent those 3 days in a whirlwind of activity. Sarah washed and mended Wade's best suit. Wade rode to the Webb's ranch and invited Marcus and his family to attend. Sarah baked bread and pies, wanting to contribute something to the meal that would follow the ceremony. They cleaned the cabin from top to bottom, Sarah insisting everything should be perfect. On Saturday night they lay in bed, both too excited to sleep. "Are you nervous?" Sarah asked. "A little," Wade admitted. "Are you terrified?" Sarah said with a laugh. "I keep thinking I will wake up and find this was all a dream. That I am still in Boston, still working for Margaret Sullivan, still alone." Wade found her hand in the darkness, as had become their habit. "It is real. I am real. This is real. And tomorrow we make it official." Sunday dawned clear and beautiful. They dressed in their best clothes. Sarah wore a simple blue dress she had brought from Boston, and Wade insisted she wear his mother's cameo brooch, the only piece of jewelry he owned. "It should be yours," he said as he pinned it at her throat. "My mother would have liked you. She was strong like you." They rode into Cripple Creek together, arriving at the small church as the morning service was letting out. Marcus Webb and his family were there, along with a scattering of other ranchers and townspeople Wade knew. News of the wedding had spread, as news always did in small communities. Reverend Thomas performed the ceremony in the church, with sunlight streaming through the plain windows. Wade and Sarah stood before him, holding hands, and spoke their vows in clear, steady voices. "Do you, Wade Lancaster, take this woman, Sarah Brennan, to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Wade said, looking into Sarah's green eyes. "And do you, Sarah Brennan, take this man, Wade Lancaster, to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Sarah said, her voice strong despite the tears in her eyes. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Wade, you may kiss your bride." Wade leaned in and kissed Sarah softly, sweetly, aware of the watching congregation but caring only about the woman in his arms. When they parted, Sarah was smiling through her tears. "Hello, husband," she whispered. "Hello, wife," Wade whispered back. The congregation cheered. Marcus clapped Wade on the back so hard he nearly fell over. Marcus's wife, Dorothy, embraced Sarah warmly. "Welcome to the community, dear," Dorothy said. "We are glad to have another strong woman out here. Lord knows we need them." There was a celebration of sorts outside the church. People had brought food to share. Wade and Sarah ate and laughed and accepted congratulations from neighbors they would come to know better in the years ahead. But eventually, they made their excuses and rode home together, both eager to begin their new life. Back at the ranch, Wade lifted Sarah down from her horse with his hands at her waist. They stood close together in the yard, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. "Shall I carry you over the threshold?" Wade asked. "It is traditional." "I am probably too heavy," Sarah protested, but she was smiling. "Let me be the judge of that." Wade swept her up in his arms, grinning at her surprised laughter. He carried her into the cabin and set her down gently inside. "Welcome home, Mrs. Lancaster." "I like the sound of that," Sarah said softly. She reached up and touched his face, her palm warm against his cheek. "Mrs. Sarah Lancaster." Wade covered her hand with his own. "I know we have been sharing a bed for a while now, but tonight is different. If you need time, if you are not ready, I can. Sarah stopped him with a kiss, deeper and more passionate than the chaste one they had shared in church. When she pulled back, her eyes were dancing. I am ready, Wade. I have been ready. I choose this. I choose you. They came together with tenderness and care, learning each other in the golden afternoon light. Wade had been with women before, brief encounters during his army days, but this was different. This was Sarah, his wife, his partner, his chosen companion. Every touch was a discovery, every kiss a promise. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the big bed, Sarah's head on Wade's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. I did not expect to be happy, Sarah said quietly. When I left Boston, I hoped for security, for safety, for a different life. But happiness, that seemed too much to hope for. And are you happy? Wade asked. Yes, Sarah said simply. More than I ever thought possible. Are you disappointed that I am not the refined lady you thought you wanted? Wade tightened his arms around her. That woman was a fantasy. You are real, and I would not trade you for 1,000 fantasy ladies. You are exactly what I needed, Sarah. I just did not know it until you stepped off that train. They spent the rest of the day and night in their own private celebration, learning each other's bodies and hearts, talking and laughing and loving. When they finally fell asleep in the early hours of morning, they were fully and completely married in every sense of the word. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Wade and Sarah worked side by side during the days, partners in every sense. Sarah continued to amaze Wade with her capabilities. She could rope a calf, doctor a sick horse, fix a fence, and still have dinner ready at sunset. But more than her practical skills, Wade found himself falling in love with her spirit, her humor, her strength. One day in late July, Wade was working with the young bay gelding when Sarah approached the pen. The horse, which Wade had started calling Copper for his reddish coat, was finally accepting a rider. Can I try? Sarah asked, leaning on the fence. He is still green, not entirely safe yet. But you think he is ready for a rider, or you would not be up there. Sarah climbed the fence. Let me try, Wade. I am a good rider. Wade dismounted and helped Sarah up. She sat easy in the saddle, talking softly to Copper, her hands gentle on the reins. The horse's ears swiveled nervously, but he did not panic. Sarah walked him around the pen, then asked for a trot. Copper responded beautifully. He likes you better than me, Wade said with mock indignation when she finally dismounted. Animals can tell when someone cares about them. You care about Copper, but you see him as a project. I see him as a friend. Sarah patted the horse's neck. He is going to be wonderful when he is fully trained. He is yours then, Wade said impulsively. If you like him so much, he is yours, your own horse. Sarah's face lit up. Really, you mean it? I mean it. Every ranch wife should have her own horse. Copper is yours. Sarah threw her arms around Wade's neck and kissed him soundly, not caring that they were standing in the dusty pen. Thank you. I will take such good care of him. In August, Wade and Sarah rode together to the high meadows where he kept his cattle in summer. They packed supplies and spent 3 days under the stars, checking on the herd, repairing lying camps, and enjoying the solitude. They made love under the vast sky, talked around the campfire, and grew even closer. I never want to leave here, Sarah said one night, lying in Wade's arms and looking at the stars. This place, this life, it feels like everything I ever wanted without knowing I wanted it. Then we will never leave, Wade promised. We will build our life here, raise our children here, grow old here together. Children, Sarah repeated softly. I want that, do you? Yes, Wade said. I want a house full of children with your spirit and your strength. In September, Sarah realized she had not had her monthly courses in quite some time. She waited another week to be sure, then told Wade one evening after supper. "I think I am with child," she said quietly, watching his face carefully. "I am not certain yet, but the signs are all there." Wade's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, joy, fear, then settling on wonder. "A baby, you are sure?" "As sure as I can be without a doctor's confirmation." "Are you happy?" "Happy." Wade pulled her into his arms. "I am thrilled, terrified but thrilled. A baby, our baby." He pulled back to look at her seriously. "You will need to be more careful now. No more working yourself so hard." "I am pregnant, not an invalid," Sarah protested. "Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. I will be fine." But Wade insisted on taking over the heavier chores, despite Sarah's eye rolling. As the weeks passed, and Sarah's condition became more apparent, Wade became even more protective. Marcus Webb visited in October and laughed at the sight of Wade hovering over Sarah. "Let her breathe, man," Marcus said with amusement. "My Dorothy worked right up until the day each of our boys was born. Sarah is strong. She will tell you if she needs to rest." "Listen to him," Sarah said pointedly. Wade tried to relax his vigilance, but it was hard. Sarah was his whole world now. The thought of anything happening to her terrified him more than he could express. The first snow came in November, dusting the peaks white and reminding them that winter was approaching. Wade made sure they had plenty of supplies laid in, enough firewood stacked to last through the coldest months, and the barn was ready for the cattle that would need to be brought down from the high country. Sarah moved through the cabin with increasing slowness as her belly grew, but she remained cheerful and active. She sewed baby clothes, knitted tiny blankets, and prepared a cradle that Wade had built from smooth pine wood. They spent the long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other from Sarah's treasured books, talking about names for the baby, making plans for the future. "If it is a boy, I want to name him after your father," Sarah said one evening, her hands resting on her swollen stomach. "What was his name?" "Joseph," Wade said. "Joseph William Lancaster." "But Sarah, we do not have to." "I want to," Sarah interrupted. "Your father deserves to be remembered. And if it is a girl, I want to name her after your mother." "What was her name?" "Catherine." "Catherine Rose." Wade touched Sarah's belly gently, feeling the baby move under his hand. Either name would be perfect. Winter settled in hard in December. Snow piled high around the cabin. Wade spent his days tending to the cattle, breaking ice on the water troughs, carrying hay to the animals. Sarah kept the cabin warm and comfortable, baking bread and mending clothes and waiting for the baby who would come in late winter or early spring. Christmas came quietly. They had no decorations except a small pine tree Wade cut from the nearby woods, which Sarah decorated with strings of popcorn and dried berries. They exchanged simple gifts. Wade gave Sarah a warm shawl he had traded for in town. Sarah gave Wade a new leather belt she had tooled herself with his initials. "I love it," Wade said, buckling it on. "How did you learn to do leather work?" "My father taught me when I was young. He worked with leather before we left Ireland." Sarah leaned against him, watching the firelight. "This is the best Christmas I have ever had, Wade. Just you and me and the baby on the way. It is everything I ever wanted." They kissed under the makeshift pine tree, the fire crackling, the snow falling softly outside. Wade thought about how far they had both come. How a chance deception had turned into the truest thing in his life. How the bride he had not expected had become the love of his life. January brought bitter cold and more snow. Wade worried constantly about Sarah as her time grew near, worried about being snowed in when she went into labor, worried about not being able to get help if something went wrong. "Stop fretting," Sarah told him one night, catching him pacing. "Women have been having babies since Eve." I will be fine, we will be fine. But what if something happens? What if there are complications? The nearest doctor is in town, and in this weather, then we will manage on our own like people have been doing forever. Sarah took his hands. I trust you, Wade, I trust us. We will be all right. In late February, Sarah woke Wade in the middle of the night, her hand gripping his arm. It is time, she said calmly, though her face was tight with pain. Wade was out of bed immediately, his heart racing. He built up the fire, heated water, gathered the clean cloths they had prepared. Sarah walked around the cabin, breathing through the contractions, stopping occasionally to grip the furniture when the pain intensified. As dawn broke, Sarah's labor intensified. Wade supported her, wiped her face with cool cloths, spoke encouragement even as he prayed silently that everything would be all right. I can see the head, Wade said hours later, positioned to catch the baby. Sarah, you are doing wonderfully, just a little more. Sarah bore down with a groan, and then suddenly there was a baby sliding into Wade's waiting hands, tiny and perfect and screaming lustily. Wade's hands shook as he held his child for the first time. It is a boy, he said, his voice choked with emotion. Sarah, we have a son. He cleaned the baby quickly, wrapped him in a soft blanket, and placed him in Sarah's waiting arms. Sarah looked down at their son with tears streaming down her face. Hello, Joseph, she whispered. Hello, little one. We are so happy you are here. Wade knelt beside the bed, his arm around Sarah, looking at his wife and son. He had never felt so much love, so much fear, so much fierce protectiveness. This was his family, his whole world right here in his arms. Thank you, he said to Sarah, kissing her forehead. Thank you for him. Thank you for everything. We made him together, Sarah said, smiling tiredly. He is ours, Wade, our little miracle. Little Joseph Lancaster thrived. He was a healthy baby with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. Wade was besotted, spending hours just watching his son sleep, marveling at tiny fingers and toes. March brought the first hints of spring. The snow began to melt, revealing the brown earth beneath. Wade worked hard to prepare for the coming season while Sarah cared for Joseph. The baby grew quickly, filling out, becoming more alert. One afternoon in April, Wade came in from working with the horses to find Sarah nursing Joseph in the rocking chair Wade had made for her. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating them both. Wade stopped in the doorway, struck by the perfection of the moment. What? Sarah asked, catching his expression. I am just thinking about how lucky I am, Wade said. How close I came to missing all this because I thought I knew what I wanted. And what did you want? Sarah asked, though she was smiling. Some fantasy. Some perfect lady who would transform my rough life into something refined and civilized. Wade crossed to her and knelt beside the chair. I wanted the wrong things, Sarah. I wanted a dream. But you gave me reality, and reality is so much better than any dream could be. Even though I tricked you, even though I was not what you ordered, especially because of that. If Margaret Sullivan had stepped off that train, my life would be so different. I would probably be miserable with a woman who could not handle ranch life, who would hate the isolation and the work. Instead, I got you. Strong, capable, real you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Sarah Lancaster. You are the best thing that ever happened to me too, Sarah said softly. I was so scared that day at the station, so sure you would send me away. I had gambled everything on a desperate hope, and I thought I had lost. We both won, Wade said. We won everything. The years that followed were good ones. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Wade's horse-breaking skills became well known in the region, and he always had more work than he could handle. Sarah managed the household and helped with the ranch work, proving time and again that she was the partner Wade needed. Joseph, grew into a sturdy little boy with his mother's adventurous spirit and his father's quiet strength. When he was 2, Sarah gave birth to a daughter they named Catherine Rose, who had auburn hair like her mother and Wade's brown eyes. 3 years later came another son, Thomas, with Sarah's freckles and a sunny disposition that charmed everyone he met. The cabin grew along with the family. Wade added rooms, built a proper parlor, installed glass windows. Sarah planted flowers around the house, creating a garden that bloomed from spring through fall. The ranch became known as one of the most prosperous in the region, but more than that, it became a home filled with love and laughter. Marcus Webb remained their closest neighbor and friend. His sons married and started their own ranches nearby. Other families moved into the area, and a real community developed. Sarah became known for her generosity, always ready to help a family in need, to sit with a sick child, to bring food to new mothers. Wade often thought back to that day at the train station, to his disappointment and confusion when Sarah had stepped down instead of the refined lady he expected. It seemed like a lifetime ago, that younger Wade who thought he knew what he wanted. How wrong he had been. How gloriously, wonderfully wrong. One evening in the summer of 1895, Wade and Sarah sat on the porch they had added to the cabin, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. Joseph, now 13, was working with copper in the corral, the horse now elderly but still gentle and patient. Catherine, 11, was reading a book under a tree, lost in an adventure story. Thomas, 8, was playing with a wooden horse Wade had carved for him. "Can you believe it has been 13 years?" Sarah asked, her hand in Wade's. 13 years since I stepped off that train and you looked at me like I was the last thing you wanted to see." "I was an idiot," Wade said. "I did not know what I wanted. I had to have you show me." "We have built a good life, have we not?" Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "Better than I ever dreamed possible when I was scrubbing floors in Boston." "The best life," Wade agreed. "Do you ever regret it? The deception, the risk you took?" "Not for a single moment." "You are everything I needed, Wade Lancaster. You and this place and our children. This is my home, my real home, the first I have had since I left Ireland as a child." Sarah lifted her head to look at him. "Do you regret it? That I was not what you expected?" Wade pulled her close and kissed her, a kiss that still held the passion of their early days together but was now deepened by years of partnership, of shared joys and sorrows, of building a life together. "I regret nothing," he said firmly. "You were not what I expected, Sarah. You were so much more. You were everything I needed, everything I did not know I was missing. You made me whole." They sat together as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire. Their children played in the yard of the home they had built together. The cattle lowed in the distance. A gentle breeze carried the scent of Sarah's flowers. Wade thought about fate, about chance, about how one woman's deception had led to the truest love he had ever known. He had expected someone different. The bride who came was everything he needed. And he would spend the rest of his life being grateful for that unexpected gift. As darkness fell, they called the children inside. The family gathered around the dinner table, laughing and talking, sharing the events of their day. Wade looked at his wife across the table, her face animated as she listened to Thomas's excited story about a bird he had seen. He looked at his children, healthy and happy and loved. This was his legacy. Not just the ranch or the land, but this love, this family, this life built on honesty and hard work and the courage to see beyond expectations to the truth of what really mattered. That night, as he and Sarah lay in bed, Wade pulled her close. "I love you," he said, words he never tired of speaking. "I love you too," Sarah replied, as she always did. "Thank you for taking a chance on the wrong bride." "You were never the wrong bride," Wade said. "You were always the right one. I just had to figure that out." They fell asleep in each other's arms, as they had done for 13 years, as they would do for many years to come. Outside, the Colorado night was vast and filled with stars. The creek babbled its eternal song. The mountains stood guard over the valley. And in a log cabin filled with love, a family slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they had found what truly mattered. Not the perfect life they had imagined, but the real life they had built together. A life that was messy and challenging and beautiful and exactly right. Wade had expected someone different, but the woman who came, with her auburn hair and her strong hands and her fierce heart, had been exactly what he needed. And in finding each other, they had both found home. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. The children grew. Joseph developed his father's talent with horses and announced at 15 that he wanted to expand the ranch's horse breeding operation. Wade helped him select quality mares and taught him everything he knew about bloodlines and training. Catherine proved to have her mother's sharp mind and her grandmother's skill with a needle. She began making quilts and clothing that were sought after throughout the region. She also had a gift for healing, often helping Sarah tend to sick neighbors or injured animals. Thomas, the baby of the family, had a talent for making friends and solving disputes. He became the mediator when his siblings argued, the peacemaker in the family. Wade often said Thomas should be a lawyer or a politician, but the boy insisted he wanted to be a rancher like his father. In 1898, when Joseph turned 16, Wade officially made him a partner in the ranch operations. They worked side by side, father and son, expanding the herd and improving the bloodlines. Sarah and Catherine managed the household and started a small business selling Catherine's quilts and Sarah's preserves and baked goods. The ranch had become more than just a home. It was a legacy, something that would outlast Wade and Sarah, carrying their love and hard work into future generations. They employed several ranch hands now, men who Wade trusted and who became part of the extended family. One of these men, a young cowboy named Daniel Wright, caught Catherine's eye when she was 17. He was respectful and hardworking, and Wade approved when Daniel asked permission to court his daughter. Sarah smiled knowingly, recognizing the same kind of genuine feeling between Catherine and Daniel that she and Wade had found. The courtship was proper and sweet. A year later, in the summer of 1900, Catherine married Daniel in the same church where Wade and Sarah had wed 18 years before. The whole community turned out for the celebration. Wade walked his daughter down the aisle with tears in his eyes, remembering the baby girl he had held in his arms, now grown into a beautiful woman ready to start her own life. "She is so happy," Sarah whispered to Wade as they watched Catherine and Daniel dance at the reception. "She chose well," Wade said. "He is a good man. He will take care of her." "Just like you took care of me," Sarah said, squeezing his hand. "Just like we took care of each other," Wade corrected. Joseph, married 2 years later to the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a spirited young woman named Emma who could rope and ride as well as any man. Wade and Sarah built a house for the young couple on the far side of their land, keeping the family close while giving them independence. Thomas showed no signs of settling down, too busy exploring every corner of the ranch and beyond, making friends everywhere he went. Wade was not worried. Thomas would find his path in his own time. As Wade and Sarah entered their 40s, they began to slow down slightly, letting their children take on more of the demanding physical work. Wade still worked with the horses he loved, but he was content to let Joseph handle the day-to-day ranch operations. Sarah still cooked and managed the household, but Catherine and Emma helped more now. They became grandparents in 1903, when Catherine gave birth to a baby girl she named Sarah. Wade watched his wife hold her namesake granddaughter and saw tears of joy stream down her face. "Another Sarah," she whispered. "Oh, Wade, look at her. She is perfect." "Just like her grandmother," Wade said, his own eyes damp. Joseph and Emma added to the next generation with a son they named Wade, and then twin girls. The ranch echoed with the laughter of grandchildren. The house that had once been a lonely bachelor's cabin was now the center of a thriving family compound. In 1905, on their 23rd wedding anniversary, Wade took Sarah on a trip back to the high meadow where they had camped in those early years of their marriage. They rode up together, moving slower now but still capable, still strong. They made camp in the same spot, under the same vast sky. Wade built a fire while Sarah prepared their simple meal. They ate and talked, remembering all the years between that first trip and this one. "You remember what you said to me that first night up here?" Wade asked. "You said you never wanted to leave, that this felt like everything you ever wanted." "I remember," Sarah said. "It was true then, and it is still true now. This place, this life, you, our family, it is everything." "I cannot believe I almost sent you away," Wade said, shaking his head. "What a fool I would have been. But you did not send me away. You took a chance on me, on us. That took courage, Wade." Sarah moved closer to him and he wrapped his arm around her. "We have been so blessed. We have worked hard for what we have," Wade said. "Nothing was handed to us. We built this together, Sarah. That is what makes it so precious." They made love under the stars that night, their bodies older but their passion undimmed. Afterward, lying in Wade's arms, Sarah said softly, "I hope we have many more years together. I am not ready to say goodbye to this life to you." "Then we will not say goodbye," Wade said firmly. "We will keep living, keep loving, keep being grateful for every day we have together." The years proved kind to them. Wade and Sarah remained healthy and active well into their 50s. They watched their grandchildren grow, taught them to ride and rope and work the land. They attended church services, community gatherings, and celebrated milestones with neighbors who had become friends over the decades. Thomas finally settled down at 28, marrying a schoolteacher from Denver who had come to Cripple Creek to teach the growing number of children in the area. Her name was Rebecca, and she brought culture and learning to the family in a way that Sarah appreciated. She started a small library in their home, open to anyone in the community who wanted to borrow books. "She reminds me of the woman you thought you were getting," Sarah said to Wade one day, watching Rebecca organize her books. "Refined, educated, cultured. She is lovely," Wade agreed. "But she is not you. And you are still exactly what I need, Sarah. You always will be." In 1915, Wade and Sarah celebrated their 33rd wedding anniversary surrounded by their children's spouses, and a growing number of grandchildren. They had built an empire of sorts, though not one measured in money or land alone. They had built a family, a community, a legacy of love and hard work. Wade stood up at the dinner table and raised his glass. 33 years ago, I was expecting someone different. I had it all planned out in my head what my life would be like, and then Sarah stepped off that train and every single one of my plans went out the window." "Wade," Sarah protested, blushing. "Let me finish," Wade said gently. "My plans were wrong. What I thought I wanted was not what I needed at all. Sarah was not what I expected, but she was everything I needed. She was strong when I needed strength, patient when I needed patience, loving when I needed love. She gave me a home, a family, a life worth living. She gave me everything." He looked at Sarah, his eyes shining. "I love you, Sarah Lancaster. I have loved you since the day you made me dinner in this cabin and told me you would earn your place here. You earned it 1,000 times over. You are my heart, my home, my everything." Sarah stood and walked to Wade, kissing him despite their audience. Their children and grandchildren cheered and clapped. "I love you too, Wade Lancaster," Sarah said when they parted. "Thank you for taking a chance on the wrong bride." "The right bride," Wade corrected, as he always did. "Always the right bride." They sat back down together, hands clasped, surrounded by the family they had created. Wade looked at Sarah, her auburn hair now streaked with silver, her strong hands weathered by years of work, her green eyes still bright and intelligent. She was more beautiful to him now than she had been at 23. Time had not diminished his love for her. It had only deepened it, enriched it, made it more precious. As the evening wore on and the family celebrated, Wade found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The loneliness that had driven him to seek a mail-order bride. The confusion and disappointment when Sarah was not what he expected. The gradual realization that she was exactly what he needed. The years of building a life together, facing challenges, celebrating triumphs, growing old side by side. It had not always been easy. There had been harsh winters, lost cattle, failed crops, sick children, lean years when they worried about money. But through it all, they had faced everything together, partners in every sense of the word, and that partnership had made all the difference. Later that night, after the guests had gone home and the house was quiet, Wade and Sarah sat on their porch in the darkness, listening to the familiar sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. "We have had a good life, have we not?" Sarah asked, her head on Wade's shoulder. "The best life," Wade confirmed, "better than I ever could have imagined." "Do you have any regrets? Anything you wish you had done differently?" Wade thought about it seriously. "No," he finally said. "I might have wished to know you longer, to have more years together. But I would not change anything we have done." "Would you?" "Not a thing," Sarah said. "Even the hard times were worth it because we faced them together. That made them bearable, even meaningful." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then Sarah said softly, "Wade, I want you to know something. Whatever happens, however many years we have left, I want you to know that you made me happy, truly, deeply happy. You gave me the home I never had, the family I always wanted, the love I never thought I would find. You gave me everything." Wade felt tears sting his eyes. "You gave me the same, Sarah. You gave me everything that matters." They went to bed that night holding each other close, treasuring every moment, grateful for every day they had been given together. The seasons continued to turn. Wade and Sarah grew older, their pace slower but their love undiminished. They spent their days working in the garden, playing with grandchildren, and sitting on the porch watching the world go by. They had earned their rest, but they remained active and engaged with life. In the spring of 1920, Wade developed a persistent cough that worried Sarah. She made him see the doctor in town, who diagnosed pneumonia. Wade spent 2 weeks in bed, Sarah nursing him with fierce determination. She barely left his side, bringing him broth and medicine, reading to him, holding his hand. "You are not allowed to leave me," she told him firmly one night when his fever was high. "We still have years ahead of us. I will not let you go." "I am not planning on going anywhere," Wade said weakly. "I have too much to live for." He recovered slowly but surely, Sarah's devoted care pulling him through. When he was finally well enough to sit on the porch again, Wade held Sarah's hand and said, "Thank you for saving my life." "You have saved mine so many times," Sarah replied. "In so many ways, it was the least I could do." They celebrated Wade's 60th birthday that summer and Sarah's 61st birthday in the fall. Their children threw them a party, inviting everyone from miles around. The celebration was a testament to the impact they had made on their community, the lives they had touched, the love they had shared. As Wade looked around at the crowd of friends and family, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude. He had built more than a ranch. He had built a legacy of love, one that would continue long after he and Sarah were gone. On a crisp October afternoon, in 1922, Wade and Sarah rode out together to check on a section of fence that Joseph had reported needed repair. They rode slowly, enjoying the beautiful fall day, the aspen trees turning gold on the mountainsides. "I never get tired of this view," Sarah said, reining in her horse to look at the mountains. "Even after 40 years, it still takes my breath away." 40 years, Wade repeated, pulling up beside her. "Has it really been that long since you stepped off that train?" 40 years, 1 month, and 3 days, Sarah said with a smile. "Not that I am counting." Wade reached over and took her hand. "Best 40 years of my life. Mine too." They sat there on their horses, hands clasped, looking at the mountains that had witnessed their entire life together. They had come to this land as strangers to each other, two lonely people seeking something they could not quite name. They had found it in each other, and in doing so, they had found everything. The fence repair could wait. Wade and Sarah turned their horses and rode back to the ranch together, side by side, as they had done for 40 years. As they would continue to do for as long as they both drew breath. Because Wade had expected someone different, but the bride who came was everything he needed. And that had made all the difference. They lived together for many more years, their love growing deeper with each passing season. They watched their grandchildren grow up and have children of their own. They celebrated 50th, 60th, and even 65th wedding anniversaries. They grew old together with grace and gratitude, never taking a single day for granted. When Wade finally passed peacefully in his sleep at the age of 86, surrounded by family, Sarah held his hand and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me when I was not what you expected. Thank you for loving me anyway. Thank you for everything." She followed him 2 years later, her body worn out but her spirit undimmed. Her last words were of Wade, of their children, of the life they had built together. She died with a smile on her face, ready to rejoin the man who had been her partner, her love, her home. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, where they could forever watch over the legacy they had created. Their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren continued to work the land, to love each other, to carry forward the lessons Wade and Sarah had taught them about hard work, honest love, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sun painted the mountains gold, it almost seemed like you could see two figures sitting on the porch of the old cabin, hands clasped, watching the world they had built with love and determination. A reminder that sometimes the best things in life are not what we expect, but exactly what we need.